Good evening. It's a great privilege to meet you all again. Today I'm going to speak about, did we come from apes? And first, let me start with a question. Have you ever thought that as the scientific knowledge increases, belief in God decreases? Many people think that way because they believe that if you need to be a religious person, you need to have a belief in something which does not have any evidence. So what do you feel about it? Do you believe in a God who does not have any evidence, as many atheistic scientists say? Many atheistic scientists have portrayed to the world that whomsoever that believes in a creator God is a fool. But the latest scientific evidence has brought in facts that shows that whomsoever does not believe in a creator is a fool. You know, I met Jesus Christ in a deathbed while I was on ventilator, and when I was not even interested to live, because I didn't feel that time there was some meaning in my life, because I felt there was no God who loves me, who can come for my help. But when God came into my life and I met him in a deathbed and ventilator, he transformed me in every way. But then I got another issue. I got another problem. And now I have a God who lives with me and in me every day, but I cannot see him. How would all these things make sense? How would I find out whether this creator who created this whole universe and a tiny creature like me is existing? Being a scientist for almost 33 years, I love research. So I carried out research in every fields of science, starting from biology, cosmology, archaeology, geology, for almost a period of 4 to 5 years to find out if this God makes sense through science. With that backdrop, now let me explain the problem today we are going to speak about. What does the Bible say about creation? Many of us think that some things are supernatural and some things are natural, right? God can do things supernaturally. God can do things naturally also. Many times we have this doubt in the Bible. Red Sea, well, we can read the Red Sea splitting in Exodus 14. Many think that it is a supernatural experience. Some say that it can be a natural, like a wind blew or something. But recently, 1 year back, Kerala got a great flood. That time in a village called Panani, they found that this strip of land came out from the sea. And people were walking on that strips. They were amazed. So many times God can use natural processes and God can intervene supernaturally. In Exodus 16, we come across another scene where the ground is splitting open and eating some people and taking down some people. It can be a natural, like an earthquake, or it can be a supernatural God induced at once. And again, in Genesis 19, we see the destruction of cities. It can be, again, a natural thing. God could have used a natural way, like a volcano or anything. Or it can be a supernatural. Again, the sun standing still in Joshua 10, 12 to 13. It can be annual solar eclipse. Do you know why solar eclipse happens? You know, this moon is 400 times smaller compared to the sun, and it is 400 times away from the earth sun is away from the thing compared to the earth. So there is so much coincidence. God could have made so much coincidence, everything, that it appears naturally, but there is an underlying design behind everything. That's why I always say we should never argue about the number of years or how it was done. We should leave all the things to God. God can use natural process and God can use supernatural process. Even now earlier science was thinking that there is no miracle possible. But now the quantum physics came into picture and showed that at subatomic level, there can be some features which we cannot understand. Tunneling, quantum entanglement, so many things which for the natural mind, they find it difficult. Scientists find it difficult to understand. Now here we live in a galaxy called the Milky Way galaxy. To go from one end to the other end, it takes 100,000 years if you travel at the speed of light. Light travels 186,000 miles per second. So this is our small little planet. If you have to traverse our little planet with the light speed, you need, in 1 second, you can go 7.5 times. That is the speed. With that speed, you need 100,000 years. Now, this Milky Way is inside a Virgo cluster. So there are inside Milky Way, you have billions of stars. You want to count the stars in Milky Way, you need 2,000, every second, if you want to count one star, you need 2,500 years. This Milky Way is inside this Virgo cluster, and light from a nearby Andromeda takes 2 million years to reach us. This Virgo cluster is inside another supercluster called the Laniakea. That Virgo light takes 65 million years to reach us. Now, the whole universe, you can see clusters of so many clusters. There are so many superclusters. There are around 2.5 trillion galaxies. The God who made this and who holds this should be an amazing God. And science portrays now each and every parameter in this universe is beautifully tuned and designed so that life can exist in a puny little planet like our Earth. You know, the Bible says, the first thing what the Bible says is, let there be light. The first thing that emerged as per the latest scientific understanding is light. The light photons came out, and that can be seen right now across the universe in the form of microwave background radiation. Scientists have found out how many years back the first light photons emerged. So the first thing that happened was light. The second thing that happened was the formation of stars and galaxies. Bible says in day 2, God made firmament to divide. He made a perfect habitable zone so that you and me will exist. You can see in this, our galaxy, our solar system is inside this place where we are in the inner rim of a minor arm. So here, if you are near the center of the galaxy, there are massive black holes. We would have been swallowed inside. If we are away from this center, there are less elements, so life cannot exist. We are in the right place where life can exist, and we can look out into the universe and study the universe. Now, coming to this Earth, our planet alone, our solar system, no other planet you can see is inside the habitable zone except Earth. Scientists have sent so many missions to Mars. They could not find any life because there is no atmosphere. 1 by 100 times the atmosphere in Mars is compared to Earth is 1 by 100. And it has a lot of problems, magnetic fields, so many things. So the perfect spot is this place where the Earth is the only planet right now. Scientists are wondering. Now the third day, God created a dry land to appear from the waters, and God named the dry land Earth and the rest of the waters seas. So first thing, God created the grass and all the planets. He formed our planet Earth. Then Bible says on day 4, he created seasons. Scientists have found that the moon was made, and because of the moon, we have the season. If the moon is not, if our Earth is, because of the moon's impact, our Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees, because of which we have seasons, and the moon is the right moon for us. So exactly everything God made, and the day 5, God created all the water creatures, birds and whales, and the day 6, God created all land animals. And then he made man and woman in his own image with mind, soul, and spirit. So now, what do I want to say here? I wanted to say that the God we serve is an awesome God. He is an awesome God. And we should never connect this days with the exactly 6 days as many people think, because the Bible does not speak about it. It says the first day. When sun and moon are not there, how will you be able to get 24 hours day? You cannot get. So it is not about the number of days. Might be, for example, if you are the first person who is writing the Genesis book, you assume, how would you be able to write? Either God should have given you a vision, or God should have revealed it to you through some dreams or something. And you don't have the scientific understanding as now scientists have. Whatever God is showing you, you might be writing down. So it can be a series of revelations which can have, each could have happened 6 consecutive days, or it could have been written 6 days. We are not sure. And Bible is also telling each day is like 1,000 years in God's sight. When Bible is silent, it's better to be silent. In 1650, the Church of Ireland, Archbishop Usher, he calculated and he said the whole universe was created on October 23, 4004 BC. And that became the point of young earth creationism. So young earth creationists believe that we all exist only 6,000 years. But Bible is not telling like that. So when Bible is silent, I think it's wise to be silent. And then we have seen this God who created the whole universe, created us in his own image. In Genesis 1:26-27, Bible says, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. So God created man in his own image, male and female he created. Both male and female are created in the image of God. What does that mean? It does not mean that God is a physical being with 2 arms, a head, like that. It has a deeper level that the basic characteristics of us are derived from similar characteristics of God. For example, both the God of the Bible and we, as people, have intellect, emotions, and will. In the Bible, God is sometimes portrayed as sad, angry, joyful. The same emotions even we have. God makes choices, God makes decisions. We too make choices and decisions. Our ability to think and reason abstractly comes from God. We have the capacities of intellect, emotion, and will, and self-awareness and conscious. We are not an impersonal it's. We are like this because God is this way. God of the Bible is a personal God. He's not a force like Star Wars. He's not an impersonal one. That is why we appreciate art, drama, music, beauty. We love to dance. Music enriches us. So that is, have you ever seen an ape like us? Can an ape, have you seen any 2 apes carrying a log of wood and walking? They made a small little experiment. They put some children in a room and they put some apes in another room. For one day, they didn't give them food. And then they brought in some food. The children shared and ate. But the apes, whichever came first, started to eat. Where from this characteristics came? That's something different. What about the spirit or consciousness? Dawkins says in his book called God Delusion, science undermines belief in God. It challenges the belief in God. He says the strongest argument for believing in God was always the argument from design. But when Darwin came along, we understood there is no design in nature. It's only an illusion or appearance of design. Therefore, belief in God is tantamount to a delusion. It's just a delusion. Have you ever thought, how does science work? All science proceeds on the assumption that nature is ordered, it's rational, it's intelligible. One cannot think that he can be a scientist if he thinks that the universe was a meaningless jumble of things. I don't know how Dawkins can write that way. That is just an illusion. But many of our youths believe it. And you know, Kinnaman in his book, Why We Lost Our Youths, has written that one of the main reasons that many Christians go away from God. They think that science is against. People have studied Bible and they have become scientists. How the sea current goes, many things and how the first person who studied about and who has discovered anesthesia also based on the Bible knowledge. And it's many of the Jewish people were great scientists. They were strong in the scriptures. So I wanted to say today, before starting my talk, that Bible is not against reasons. So that's why in my book, I have given a clear evidence how everything came into existence and how everything makes sense through science. So, in this book, I have given facts not based on creationist things. I've given facts based on the universe and how the life started, how the universe started, everything from latest scientific evidence from Scientific American and books like Nature's. So there is no contradiction between Bible and science. If you know, for me, for example, I appreciated how an aeroplane will fly after studying aerospace engineering, after finishing my PhD. The same way, after completing my scientific studies on all this cosmology, I understood my creator more. Science paved me the way for the creator. It's not the other way around. But why all these things started? In the late historic mission of one of the exploration by NASA, twin spacecraft, which were christened as Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, broke free from the Earth's gravity to the outer reaches of the solar system. Their primary destination were the 4 giant planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. For 13 years, the 2 spacecrafts, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, toured these mysterious worlds at close range, collecting data. Among thousands of pictures of planets, the most memorable was recorded on the Valentine's Day 1990, February 14th, when Voyager 1 approached the edge of the solar system, then turned back towards the sun with its wide and narrow angle cameras. The spacecraft captured unprecedented view of our home galaxy around us from so many 4 billion miles away. That picture showed something awesome. You can see this picture. This is the Earth. This tiny pale blue dot is Earth. It was taken from a distance of 6 billion kilometers away. This changed the view of many people. They started to believe the Earth, in this whole cosmic scenario, the Earth is just a tiny thing. So there is no use in our life, and there is no use in being in this whole cosmos because we don't have meaning. We are just an insignificant tiny dot. Carl Sagan, he brought in this idea of this tiny pale blue dot. In his book, Pale Blue Dot, he wrote, because of the reflection of sunlight, the Earth seems to be sitting in a beam of light as if there was some special significance. It's just an accident of geometry optics. Look at the dot. That is our home. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being lived out their lives. The delusion that we have some privileged position in this universe are challenged by this point of pale blue dot. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. Now I just showed you the universe. I showed you how we are so tiny. But is that view true? So I'm going to organize my talk into 2 parts. First, is our planet as insignificant as Carl Sagan said? Second, is evolution a theory, or how did we come into existence? Why our planet is an extraordinary planet? Many unidentified flying objects or UFOs have fascinated and puzzled people for decades. Over the last 2 centuries, many sightings of flying objects have been recorded. Everything from colorful streaks of light to flying saucers. In October 2007, a fast-moving object was spotted at Kolkata, India, and a video footage was released. It was triggering frenzy, but later they identified it as the planet Venus. On 20th of September 2019, around 1,500 people flocked to an area called Area 51, a secret military force in the desert of Las Vegas. This was because there was one viral Facebook event, Storm Area 51. They can't stop all of us. They thought that some alien spacecraft has landed and that many of the alien pilots, US government has caught hold of them. Such conspiracy theories exist. But have we found any aliens till far? Till now, have we found? In 1950, Enrico Fermi, a Nobel Prize winning physicist, posed the question, where is everybody? He said, since there are trillions of stars in the universe, Earth is astonishingly special. The universe should be teeming with light. But when he tried to watch, he could not find any intelligence from the stars. So this cry, is there anybody out there, inspired the start of many research centers. But still now they could not find. In 1974, they sent in the Voyager spacecraft our DNA, simple drawing of our solar system, thinking that some aliens will find out. But till now, nobody has found out. In Europe and this Jupiter's moon, and many Mars, many other planets or their moons, scientists try to find even if there is any little life there, but still now they haven't found. Why? What makes our Earth special? What makes our Earth special? That's when I wanted to show you that we live in a special planet. We live in a planet because God has made it special for us. That location is the most important thing. Earth's magnetic field is finely tuned. This I wanted to show you all these 9 things. Human life is so significant. In our planet alone, there is so much of carbon. Our skin, hair, and cells are consisting of this carbon. We need carbon. We need liquid water. There is abundance of liquid water in our planet. And we need the right sun. It should be stable for the next 5 billion years. The right atmosphere, the right distance from the sun, protection from harmful rays. Because if harmful rays comes, we will be killed. So God has provided a beautiful set of firmaments like greenhouse effect, and then over that so many layers of to protect us from meteors, mesosphere. You can see our ozone layer and so many layers of atmospheres to protect us from harmful X-rays. Even that heliosphere protects us from harmful X-rays. We are having a rocky planet and a thin crust. Because of the thin crust, we are able to get the temperature regulated. Volcanoes, it helps in recycling carbon chemical elements. And this tectonic plates move, that is very good for us. Protective magnetic field, because this magnetic field, there is a magnetic field? There is iron in the core of our planet, because of which there is a magnetic field generated, it protects us. And right size of planet, and again right size of moon. So how all these things came into existence? All these things, has it come on its own, or is there an intelligent designer behind it? So that is the reason, to bring some life into existence, God has made. Romans 1:20 affirms that the unseen qualities of God and the wisdom of God are seen in the works of creation. Look at the horse. It has huge lungs. This helps in extracting large amount of oxygen for its energy. Just like you increase the power in your car by using a turbocharger, you need oxygen to run fast. Similarly, camel, they can have 3 eyelids and eyelashes to protect. They have huge trunks. You see the beautiful coral reefs. Penguins, they live underwater. They have special thing to breathe, and they can survive in seawater due to a gland called supraorbital gland. Even the bottlenose dolphins have communications of over 5 kilometers. And many things, that's why Bible says beautifully in Job 12, 7 to 10, ask the animals and they will teach you. Ask the birds of the air, they will tell you. Speak to the earth, it will teach you. Let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of this does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? We believe that everything created by the hand of the Lord, but scientists like Richard Dawkins says in his Blind Watchmaker, if science properly understood undermines belief in God. Because before Darwin, we know there was a strongest argument for the existence of God because of the design. But Darwin came along and we were able to explain that appearance. Now we know that it's just an illusion. It's not a real design. It's just an illusion. That design is because of a blind, undirected process called natural selection acting on random variation and also on random mutation. He says it appears as a design, but it is not a design. And even another scientist, evolutionary biologist, Douglas Putema, he says that by coupling the directed purposeful variations to the blind natural selection, Darwin made the spiritual explanation of life superfluous. There is no need of God hypothesis. Is it true? Is there no need of God hypothesis? Every cell in your body has a very detailed instruction code called DNA, a 3.1 billion lettered program that acts like a mini computer program telling the cell to act in a certain way. How did this instruction code wind up in a cell in a tiny dot? How did this DNA come into picture? Is it by random chance? The beautiful complexity of DNA is not random. It is sophisticated. We are not machines built by DNA whose sole purpose is to make more copies. Is our mind nothing more than the activity of the brain? Is our brain more than a computational device? We are not machines, but we are made in the image of God fearfully and wonderfully. But this is the way, this is the truth. But when people like Darwin say there is no purpose, many youths believe it. You can see many, when you ask about why they commit suicide in their young age, people say there is no purpose. There is no purpose. Why there is no purpose? Because they believe that everything came on its own. The universe because Dawkins says the universe that we observe has precisely the same properties as we expect at the bottom. No design, no purpose, no evil, no good, nothing but pitiless indifference. DNA never cares nor knows. DNA just is, and we dance to its music. Dawkins says why he came to this conclusion in one of his interviews. He said that Darwin removed the main argument for God's existence. Is Darwin how Darwin's theory of evolution can remove? Have you ever thought about it? Is it possible? What is that theory? Is it a theory? Is it proved? Theory means it should be proved. That is that undirected process, a blind process of natural selection has proved that there is no God, there is no meaning. He calls it as a God delusion. So what is this Darwinism? Darwinism is an idea that life looks as though it were designed by intelligence for a purpose, but it is not designed. It is done by an unguided, undirected process known as natural selection, acting on random variation or random mutations in DNA, which can produce the appearance of design. In other words, unguided natural process has the powers to mimic a designing intelligence. That means you can have a design with no need of a designer. There is a design, but there is no need of a designer. This idea of a design without a designer is given in the 3rd chapter of the book of Darwin, Origin of Species. Now, I wanted to give you a story how this started. In the 19th century, biologists thought everything happened because of adaptation. Because of the environment we live in, we change. But Darwin came and he said that adaptation is not because of a designer. And he said that selective breeding, all of you might have studied in Genesis about Jacob. How did he did selective breeding? That is the selective breeding. In the 13th, 14th centuries, Spanish sheep herders let their sheep breed with English sheep. The result was a breed called merino sheep, which is a nightmare that humans made, because these sheep cannot shed wools on their own. That they had to shed wools, otherwise they cannot survive. And now humans have to go and shed the wools because they mated 2 woollier sheep and they brought in a very huge woolier sheep like a merino sheep. How does it has around 40 pounds of wool every year. So now how I wanted to say is this environment sometimes helps the sheep to become woolier, because if it's a very strong winter climate, you assume it's very chill. So the sheep develops more wool because to protect itself. So that's why the climate is helping the sheep to adapt to it. When Darwin came, he said, wait a minute, what if instead of an intelligent breeder doing this selection, making a more woolier sheep and a more male woolier sheep and a more female woolier sheep to mate, and after some years, you get a woolier sheep. It is done by an intelligent person. Instead of that, nature does it. So nature is telling if the woolier sheep alone will survive, survival of the fittest. So the less woolier sheep will not survive. So now nature will replace the breeder. Nature will replace the intelligent agent. So now he saw in Galapagos, he was in, actually Darwin was studying for a priest in Cambridge University. He left and he went on a journey. So he ended up in Galapagos Island. There he saw birds called finches. So he saw in this Galapagos finch's beak changing in response to weather patterns. Beaks getting longer or beaks getting shorter based on the weathers. For example, in some island, birds were there with less beaks, small beaks. And some other island, birds were there with bigger beaks. And similarly, in some of the places, the moths were light colored. I will show you this. You can see here, see, this is the Galapagos Island he went, and here he found lot of finches. So you can see here the beak of the finches are different. Why the beaks are different? Because, for example, this beak had to go and get a strong nut, because in some places there is no food for them. They cannot get the food easily. So they have to break the nut to get the food. So their beaks became stronger. In some of the places, they were easily getting food. So their beaks were adapted to its diet. So beaks varied as per the diet. And now, so he said, millions of years of this new information, because of the selection process, an amoeba from the smallest microorganism, man came into existence. This is his theory. He said that everything came from a small amoeba, and with this process of natural selection and random mutations acting on DNA, we ended up in man. So he showed it as a beautiful tree of life. He said that there were a lot of gaps in understanding. That's why we thought there is a God existing. We were not knowing that evolution was the process. So we believe that a God exists, and he created first some animals, and then he created other animals, and then finally humans. But now evolutionary theory came, and so there is no need of this God. So that gap is fixed, so the God is expelled. But what I wanted to ask you is, can the whole universe come from nothing? There is no answer from atheistic scientists. How life can come from non-life? No answer. I'm going to show you how it is. How reason came from non-reason? No explanations. How morality came from non-morality? No explanations. That's why John Lennox says that Christian God is not the God of the gaps who will be expelled when science increases, but he's a God of the whole show. So now I wanted to show you through this one, how did life come from non-life? How did the complexities of life arise? Can it be designed without a designer? How did the information arise in a DNA? Why is our brain different from our mind? How does consciousness came into existence? So this is the way today I wanted to speak to you on this one. Because you see here, there is a difference between two types of evolution. Before Darwin came, there was a man called Lamarck. He said that, see, this giraffe is small. It wanted to get some food. So its neck is growing. Next generation's neck is growing. After some generations, neck is growing. By like this, the giraffe became the neck became tall. But if you see the overall process, if you have to increase the neck, the abdomen, and many other digestive process, there are a lot of processes in the body has to be changed. So it's not only the neck process alone which will come into picture, but there are so many things which there is no explanation. And here fish became mammals. So one day the fish wanted to become a mammal and slowly developed legs and it became a mammal. And then one day the mammal wanted to become a fish back and it went inside and became a whale. So and then there are changes from dinosaurs to birds. One is a warm-blooded animal, the other one is a cold-blooded animal. There is no explanation how a warm-blooded animal can be changed to a cold-blooded or vice versa. And there are so many complications in this way of explaining from one species to another species. There is microevolution, but macroevolution, Darwinian theory fails. I will show you how microevolution comes to pass. For example, living beings produce larger offsprings that can survive with the limited resources from the environment, struggle to survive, and only the most fittest survive. And the individuals that survive inherit their characteristics from their offspring. For example, let me show you an example. Here he is showing Lamarck, as I explained you, Lamarck is showing for this giraffe if the length increases. But Darwin's theory says it's a little different from Lamarckian's theory of evolution. He says this giraffe, because its neck is longer, it's able to get food. This giraffe, its neck is small, it cannot get food. So after some time, this small giraffe dies. Only the long giraffe lives. So then again the tree is bigger, this giraffe dies. So slowly the survival of the fittest comes forward. So that is the one he says. And the next is natural selection. Here you can see here. Now there are a lot of these here. Some are green color and some are adapted to the environment, this brown color. So if a bird comes, it can easily pick up the green color. So slowly, after some time, it's picking up the green. You can see here there are a lot of greens, and after some time, you end up with becoming only the brown. So this is the way Darwin explained survival of the fittest. If you are able to change yourself to the environment so that you can protect yourself from predators, you can save yourself. But what would happen if the beetles lived in the grass or on the leaves of the tree? It has to change the color. So he says there is no good or bad trait. Here in this case of a peppered moth, this Haldane explains using this peppered moth. During the Industrial Revolution, the trees were fully covered with soot. So now what happens? This is camouflage from predators. This color is not camouflaged, because of which after some time this particular moth expired and this moth survived. So that is the way he explains. So now one population varies slightly from the previous population, and this natural selection from time gives rise to different species, he says. But when scientists calculated this time, it became so huge, you need 14 to 15 billion years, whereas for Darwin's theory, it's only million years, few million years. That is a major drawback for Darwin's theory. Any mistake also in the copying of DNA results in a different protein. Now, this protein is very, very important. I'll show you how protein folding is very important. Even mutations, using mutations to form new species is totally ruled out. And Richard Dawkins, one of the most popular new Darwinism in a selfish gene, says, we are just a survival mission. Robo vehicles blindly programmed to preserve the selfish molecule known as gene. So this is the one that is propagated because of the Darwin's theory, that we are all just a blind process. But British astronomer Sir Fred Hoyle says the likelihood of life from matter is less than 1 in a number with 40,000 knots. It's big enough to bury Darwin and the whole theory of evolution. He's not a believer, but he's a scientist. Supposing he says the first cell originated by chance, Now, if I say automatically the first cell came, it's like believing that tornado swept through my junkyard. It made the aeroplane parts and made a full Boeing 747. He is making fun of Darwin's theory, telling it does not make sense. Darwin himself said, often a cold shudder runs through me, and I have asked myself whether I might have devoted my life to a fantasy. So that's why the problems with Darwin's theory, improbability of enough mutations to produce new organs. Most mutations are harmful. Complex systems need an integrated package of coordinated changes. For example, if giraffe's neck has to increase, its abdominal system also had to change. So it needs a coordinated change. Then again comes the Cambrian explosion. At one point, I have to tell you about the fossils. They found a lot of fossils which belongs to various species, and it suddenly came into existence. So as per Darwin's tree, this Cambrian explosion gave a big blow to Darwin's tree. Extreme biochemical complexity of life function based on at the molecular level, like DNA level and the protein level, defies chance explanation. And the time, as per Darwinian theory, there is only few million years, but its time needs billions and billions of years, which is not available. So now, how did the first life came into existence? People believed in 17th century that life came from non-life. They thought some meat was rotting. So in that, some maggots had come. So they thought, okay, maggots, if the meat is rotting, maggots automatically will come into existence. And similarly, if some wet cloth is there over a wheat, rat came into picture. They thought rat automatically came. But then Reddy, a scientist, he came and he showed that if I close it with a covered net and cover it by not allowing flies to land on them, then maggots are not seen. So he said it is not automatically come, it's because of a process. So because maggots came from eggs that flies put on the meat. Similarly, Louis Pasteur also created an experiment, and he said that microorganisms come from other microorganisms and there is no spontaneous generation. Because he boiled some broth inside the flask, it remained clear for 1 year. After next, he broke the necks, so it became cloudy and got contaminated. If it is not broken, it was not contaminated. So it was easily proved that organism cannot come from non-organism. But scientists brought in this theory of panspermia theory. They said that comets came and gave life to us. Carl Sagan always uses the Bible words. Comets give and comets take away. He said that comets gave life and comets take away. But if comets have to give life from another planet, how did life start in that other planet? Nobody has an answer for it. Because this pushes the question one step backward. And now this primordial soup theory. They thought that in the early Earth, there was no oxygen, only reducing atmosphere was there. And when lightning strikes and the solar energy made some of the non-living organism to become a living organism. How chemistry became biology. That is the main problem. So they could not answer to how the chemistry. So Miller and Urey, he made an experiment. He studied the molecules present at the time of the early Earth, methane, ammonia, and others. It's all reducing atmosphere. There was no oxygen. He mixed molecules in a reaction chamber. He sparked it with the electricity. He exposed a mixture to UV radiation. And finally, he said he produced amino acids. You know, this experiment is far from the truth because, you know, he used a trap to collect the previous thing. If this trap is not there, amino acid cannot form. And most of the items formed were very dangerous to toxic to DNA. And also the early atmosphere had oxygen. The early atmosphere, they assumed that it did not have oxygen, but it had oxygen. So this theory was proved false until now. There is no theory to tell how the first cell came into picture. How an inorganic chemistry became an organic chemistry is a question mark. And now once again, what does the second law of thermodynamics says? If you leave a car just like that, after some time, what happens? It gets degraded. So anything order, it goes on becoming disorder. But as per Darwin's theory, it gets more orderly. So it's against second law of thermodynamics in a closed environment. Now, if you see, this is a pattern automatically is coming because of the cloud. In this case, which is a pattern and which is a design? In this mountain, there is an eagle as a pattern. But in this mountain, the 4 presidents' faces are engraved. Somebody has designed. So in the life also, there is some pattern, but there is some design. You see here in this DNA, there is a design. It's recognized as a molecular basis for genetics. It is for 6 feet of DNA is fitted into the nucleus of each cell. 1,000 nuclei can fit into the tip of a needle. Now, this DNA, if you want to see the machine codes of the genes, is uncannily computer-like. And it's like a computer program, but far more advanced than we have ever created. And because of the lack of time, I'm going a little faster. Even you see this protein, it's folded so much. So even a small change in this fold, life cannot exist. Totally you will get into problems. So mutation and all the other process through which Darwin speaks cannot be proved because this protein has to fold exactly in the right way. A living cell needs at least 239 proteins, at least 400 amino acids of left-handed variety to make one protein molecule. Now, to make one DNA molecule, you see, I'm just showing you here, a single simple cell. This is the probability, 1 by 10 per 57,800. Now, to make a little baby and to make that baby into a thinking, a breathing, living human being, imagine, can it come by chance? And the next thing is irreducible complexity. You know, you take a little bacterial flagellum, all parts has to be there simultaneously to work. This is a bacterial, it has a propeller, it has a liquid cooled shaft, it has a stator, it has a rotor to make it to move. So this is called irreducible complex systems. Michael Behe said, if one thing is not there, the whole thing cannot function. Darwinian evolution of making one after the other will never work in such system. We have like this in our body, ATP synthase, so many other things which you need a beautiful machine-like structure. This Darwinian things cannot explain. He says, they say that because, see now in this case, they found some small fossils here and there. For example, to make a skull, a human being like this, they would have got a little fossil this side of the hand, femur or leg, and then they join together and make a human being. So this process also remains in the mind of a human being. For example, I believe in atheism. I believe I came from an ape. I can easily make it such a way that it can come from an ape. It's an intermediary species. But people, after many times, people have found either it is an ape or it is a human being with a big skull because of some disease. So this is the way many of the latest, you read some of the papers which I have given in my book, you can easily prove that Neanderthals and others, many of the structures which scientists talk about either belong to some apes or belong to some human beings. So now comparative biochemistry, they say, because in apes also we have carbon-based chemicals and DNA is there and bacteria, algae, everything has the same process. Now, and then this is the reason for evolution means I wanted to tell you, if I'm a designer, I can use the same building blocks and everything. I have the same sort of prototypes and I can use in a different ways how I want. That does not mean that it belongs to a chance. It means that it belongs to an intelligent designer. And again, there are some vestigial organs, they said, like hip bone in a python, appendix in the humans, the tailbone in humans. But recently, one of the scientific organization have brought in facts that many of the vestigial organs have some functions. And even the junk DNA, what they thought it is no use, have some function. So what is the characteristics of humans? We have upright posture, we can use tools and technologies, we have advanced intelligence, we have complex communication, we have consciousness. So this comparative anatomy of showing that everybody has the same legs, everybody have the same fingers, and that's why we came from apes, is a false argument. Because as a designer, I can use the same thing because some evolutionary scientists use this embryology, telling that the same sort of thing exists in everything. And again, this is Archaeopteryx. They found an intermediary species. Darwin thought he will find a lot of intermediary species, but now the intermediary forms are very less. This, when they found, they were so excited. This is between reptiles and birds. But now many of the latest articles say it is not an intermediary species, it's just a bird. This Archaeopteryx is just a bird. So I wanted to just go fast. So similar comparisons can be made on anatomical evidence, but all have a shared characteristics. It does not mean that we evolved from gorilla. It means that same sort of structures are used throughout all the animals and man. So now what I wanted to say, if you are a Darwinism or if you are a Christian Scientist, what is the difference? Ideas have consequences. Now I can believe it's my own thing based on the evidence. Everything shows that Darwinian theory is not a theory. It's just a hypothesis, and there is no rigid answer to any of the intermediate species or any of the things what Darwin speaks about. So it's in my hand to choose Darwinism or Christian theism, because I have shown in my book clearly how Christian theism makes sense as per the evidence. This says that God made mankind in his own image. Secular humanism says God created, man created God. So now, these technological processes are now coming into picture. A scientist this is a suicidal mission. You get inside this machine, you press a button, and you go and stand in some beautiful place. You get into liquid nitrogen and you just die beautifully. Is this the way that technological process you use? If you're a Christian Scientist, I don't feel you will be doing this. Now, what about the designer babies? Gene manipulations people use to make designer babies. Now, when I'm doing a designer baby, in some way I do a wrong manner and I end up in a baby full of disease or something abnormal. Who is responsible for that life? Am I playing God? Am I playing something wrong? Which is important. So that's why, and you know, when this Darwinian theory was brought forth, Julian Huxley, he was the bulldog of Darwin. He coined the term survival of the fittest. That is a reason in which inspired communism. Millions were killed by Stalin. It inspired Hitler. That we can see many people were killed because of Hitler. And again, euthanasia. If you are old, there is no use. Better die. Life is ultimately without meaning. Women undergoing abortion are told that the embryo is only in early stages of evolution. But more important thing is this eugenics. What is eugenics? In those days, people thought that if you are a less fitter, if you are a weak individual, better to be sterilized. Because if you bring forth some children, they will also become weak. They will also be less intelligent. So in Germany and US, around 30,000 people were forced sterilized. In Germany, Nazi Germany, around 3 lakhs people were forced sterilized. The doctors will examine the family members and they will grade them. These people are weak. Then the government will take them and sterilize them. Who is responsible? Now, this abortion, taking the life of unborn, euthanasia, taking the life of elderly, infanticide, taking the life of unfit, eugenics, taking the life of unfit, cloning taking the life of embryo. We constitute just one bit of population in a universe. We are completely irrelevant. That's why all these things are happening. Are we playing God? This is the implication of Darwinism. But what is the implication of Christian theism? God's story is our story. We are part of of such a beautiful God's big story. We are made in the image of God. We are his ambassadors. We function as his prophet, priest, and king. We do everything for the glory of God. We treat others well because they are also made in the image of God. And again, there is no coincidence in God's universe. That's why this thing make lot of sense, because why? Because Darwin taught that life does not make sense. Darwin taught that everything came on its own. So there is no purpose, there is no meaning. But we follow a God who gives us purpose. Even if we die, we have an afterlife. This gives beautiful meaning beyond our life. So now I wanted to end it. The classic march of progress image, a self-progression from a crouching ape to upright humans depicted by Darwin's evolution, just by blind process, cannot explain how the big complex brains of humans evolved. The God who made everything is powerful and he's loving. We are significant in this great cosmic drama. God cares for us. He says that I love you with an everlasting love. Man is not merely an evolution, but rather a revolution. Because Bible says, I've called you by your name. I've carved you in the palm of my hands. You're precious to me. I have great plans for you. Even your father and mother can forget you, but I will not forget you. Such a beautiful God we serve. So we are not roaming around in this world as purposeless creatures. We soar high, even when the life, there is twists and turns can be in our life, but we have a purpose. Are you feeling today that you are in the middle of a perfect storm? How did I come here? I wanted to say that you are not an accident. God has a perfect plan. There are no accidents with him. The God who created everything so beautifully, so exactly, has a plan in your life. So that's why I wanted to say, commit everything to God and he will take control of your life. And search for evidence. And when you search for evidence, you will end up with God of the Bible. Thank you. I'll just finish with a prayer. Precious Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the ones who are listening, and bless them. And Lord, open your mind, the truth of the gospel, that you love them, you care for them, you are with them, you have a purpose in their life, and there is no coincidence in their life. Even when storms can come, problems can come, amidst all those things, you make sense in their life because you walk with them, you hold them, and you guide them. Speak to them as nobody else has ever spoken, Father. Walk with them, Lord Jesus, and guide them in their life. Thank you once again. I give this day into your hands. In the wonderful and beautiful name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
So at this time, I would also open up the flow for questions. So if anyone, if you have any questions for Madam, like you can unmute yourself and ask a question. And
Hi, Lataka, this is Rebecca.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, you know me, obviously I'm a theist. But can't there be any middle ground between the extreme atheists like Dawkins and the highly evangelicals? I mean, can't we say that God directed evolution and evolutionary process could have been one of his ways of creation, along with intelligent design and irreducible complexity, obviously? Couldn't he have used evolution to create? Why should it be totally exclusive, evolution and creation?
Actually, I wanted to say it need not be an exclusive, because I believe in microevolution, because in the same species and within the same things. But when it comes from one species to another, when there is no evidence, I'm not knowing how to explain, because I have clearly seen evolutionary scientists say that one species to another, they try to form theories how it comes through speciation, through punctuated equilibrium, and many other theories. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end, if you see, the theories are not standing up to the mark. I'm not able to find out how dinosaurs gave birth to birds, how animals became whales again. Because I read in the book that one time an animal wanted to become again back, it wanted water, so it went inside and it became a whale. It developed, and that's why we can see the homologous organs. So I'm not sure. See, that's why initially I told God can create through natural process, through supernatural process. So we cannot restrict God in whichever way He says. But there is a creator, and us, Darwin says survival of the fittest. I don't believe, because there can be some things that is in the nature. There is some survival of the fittest, but that should not be the main theory in our life. And as you say, there can be some ground, but it cannot be the complete ground. And apes to human, it's completely ruled out because we have a spirit. And the theistic evolutionists say that at one point, God put spirit inside hominids. If God has to put a spirit inside a hominid, then what would you say about Adam and Eve? So that means Adam and Eve has to be ruled out. When Adam and Eve has to be ruled out, then how would you say the first sin came into picture? There is no fall. If there is no fall, then why Jesus has to come? I don't understand. I was trying my best to try to understand theistic evolution, how they define Adam and Eve. So as per them, there can be no one Adam and Eve. There should be some 10,000 species of hominids on which God infected this spirit. So that's why I don't subscribe to theistic evolution, because it's going much beyond my head.
No, I don't believe, obviously, that dinosaurs become birds. I mean, there has to be some morphologic similarity, but something little more than microevolution, like from apes to become apes to become man, for instance. We see a lot of evidence of, altruism and other intelligence in higher apes and higher
Can you
mammals.
tell me what is the evidence? Can you tell me? Can you once again explain? Like,
Like
because I didn't find any evidence.
when you see animals like bonobos or great apes, they
Hmm.
exhibit altruism, they exhibit memory, compassion. Elephants, they mourn their dead, that sort of a thing. So similar sort of consciousness, of course not as advanced as humans, but are close enough. So you're saying that the main argument against theistic evolution is because we believe that Adam and Eve is multiple. That is the main thing,
No,
according
no,
to
no.
you.
I don't believe in
Mm.
that. I'm not telling in that way. See, you are telling in my book, I have clearly given so many
Mm.
differences between bonobos, and among all the great apes, bonobos are closer to humans because of the DNA. But even
Yes.
then, if you take the junk DNA and others, it's not close, it's much far. And how the chromosomes, the 24 chromosomes became 23 by joining at one point, so even that has a lot of problems. It's impossible. That's why latest evidence shows, you see 2019, many conferences, they are coming forward, scientists themselves, evolutionary scientists, we need to bring in different theory, because evolutionary theory cannot explain. There should be some theory because they cannot accept God. They are trying to think now, we have to bring in some other theory. I can send you those points, because and there are a lot of differences between apes and humans which cannot be bridged. So I'm not
No,
telling
we are
based
not
on
saying,
biology.
we never say that we come from apes, right? We only say it's a common
Yeah,
ancestor
there's a
that we
common
have.
ancestor.
Yeah, yeah,
There is a
yeah.
common ancestor to both of us. But
Mm.
even if there is a common ancestor to both of us, there should be something, there is total difference in a human being compared to other things. That's total difference. I can show you in some one page of my book that I've clearly given. And today also I showed in one of my PPT how we are different. Because we have sense of love. And even you say that animals might be loving, but I told you an example of social responsibility, that you try to make two apes to carry some log of food. It cannot do it. You try to ask them to share food among themselves. They cannot do it. This is one of the examples, but I can give more examples. So even with that both of us have the same ancestors will not work out. There are a lot of gaps. In both sides, there can be gaps, but I feel in evolution theory, there are a lot of gaps. Unless you have an intelligent design behind it, it's not possible.
No, I never said that there is no intelligence. I
Yes,
don't
yes.
believe in evolution as a blind process, obviously. Obviously, God guided the evolution, but being an evolutionary theist myself, I believe there can be a middle ground between how God could have used evolutionary process for creation, is what I believe. But yeah, thank
Evolutionary
you.
process, when you think, you should always
Mhm,
think, see now how they are telling. From this organism to this one. From fish, they are trying to find fish came to the land and how it became an animal. And
mhm,
then how dinosaurs reptiles are warm blooded, then. Then their
mhm.
breathing system for birds, it's one way breathing system, but for an animal, it is two ways. How a bird can come from that breathing system you try to study, you will understand that it is totally impossible. That's
No,
what I
no.
have
As
been.
I told you, I don't believe in evolution through things that are morphologically very different, like a giraffe becoming like an ant evolving into a giraffe. That is not what I'm talking about. But I was thinking more specifically about having a common ancestor with the apes, because morphologically, also humans are similar looking to apes, right? Being mammals and all of that. That's what I was talking about, really. Yeah.
But even this theory that we all came from Africa has been proved
Mm-hmm.
false. Now, latest researchers are coming that China, some of the skulls they have found, and in different places they have found. So, even with
Yes.
common ancestors, I have proved it the various ways in my book. The third chapter I can send you by mail. You can go
Mm-hmm.
through that, because I try to actually, I did not have one view. I try to first understand all the view, and then I subscribe to this view because this made more sense for me.
Okay, sure. Yeah. We can
Okay.
discuss it more
Yeah.
on WhatsApp. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
My name is Paul Joe Manuel. I have a small theory in my mind, and it's called the God's Projects. In this theory, that God has created other human beings so He can contact them and make bigger civilizations. There is one small puzzle I need to figure out. Has God created other human beings for a purpose, or is there no other creation, no other beings, and we are the only special one to ask questions?
Your question is a beautiful question. You are asking me, God could have created some other alien human beings or human beings of some other people across the planet, right?
Yes.
There can be other intelligent people, or are we alone in this universe? This is a question many people are asking. Are we alone in this whole universe? Because there are 4,500 exoplanets have been found. Planets rotating around the suns. There are super Earths. And till now, they haven't found, they have sent so many times echoes to the stars. 4 months continuously, they have tried to listen from one star. If something is coming from that intelligence, but till now they could not find. Even if they find, I'm not sure it can be, because it's so huge. It does not mean that we are not special. But till now, in our galaxy, we are the special people. We have thousands of galaxies and they have never found. Even if they find, crossing that difficult cosmos coming to us, it's not that easy unless they develop a spacecraft that can go across, or through time dilation or something like that they might have to do.
Like
So it's
warp drive device. or wormholes, something like that you're saying?
I can't hear you. So this is the way. See, that can be if people, I'm not sure, but God created us so special. Until now, we have never found any aliens. So many UFOs have been spotted, but nothing has been found to have any special things because they were all like flares or something else. Thank you for
There
your
might be
question.
aliens. There might be aliens, but they're in a different three-dimensional plane that we cannot see.
Okay, see that I ascribe to that one because we believe in angels, we believe in demons, we believe in some other spiritual things. Okay, and God is beyond everything. So scientists have found there are many dimensions. We are in 3 dimensions. If a higher dimensional being comes to our being dimension, they can see us, we cannot see them. Why you are sometimes being influenced by some things to do wrong? There can be some beings in the higher dimensions. It can be an angel. See, in Zechariah, you read angels coming down and taking the news from the ground to heaven. So in Job, we see angels. They can be in different dimensions. So I believe some creatures are there in different dimensions. And those creatures we cannot see unless they wanted to reveal themselves to us. And God is beyond every dimension. So it's better not to depend upon those angels or anything. It's better to look to God who controls everything. So then God will send his angels as ministering spirits to protect you and guide you. And you will not be worried about evil spirits or anything. Thank you for this question.
Yeah, so at the time, I think it's almost like 8:20. So thank you everyone for joining. So at this time, from the Koramangala Methodist Young Adults Fellowship, we want to thank you, ma'am, for this the insightful 2 sessions that you gave us, and it was really great to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.